Passion, purpose, possibilities. They're all right there. But sometimes we need a little push. And that's where SheSez comes in. Think of it as a master class taught by the world's most interesting women, sharing stories and ideas, because girlfriends help each other. This is SheSez with Linda Grasso. Hello and welcome to SheSez. Our guest today is Tal Rabinowitz. As former VP of Comedy Development at NBC, she was responsible for developing shows like The Mindy Project and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. But after nearly 20 years of doing that, developing shows, she was feeling burned out. And when her contract wasn't picked up in 2014, she was relieved. She and her husband adopted a child, and Tal took some time off. Then she pondered what she would do next. She wanted to do something that worked with motherhood. And the answer was a beautiful and innovative studio called the Den Meditation. Tal, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to go back to the moment you decided to make a career switch. That had to be a tough decision.
It's interesting because it wasn't a moment per se. I was slowly in my old job getting very, frustrated. I could tell I needed something else. And I actually remember 6 months before my contract was up, I was having a conversation with my husband saying, I don't think I want to look for another job. If this contract ends, are you okay with me taking some time? Because I needed help with that. And he said, absolutely. And so I knew at my gut when that contract ended, I needed to take some time. And I had already, while I was in that job, came up with the idea for the Den. That's the idea actually sparked while I was working in my old job. And it was funny, the minute I stopped that job, my husband was like, you have to open this, you have to open it. And the idea of doing anything in that moment just seemed so exhausting. I was so tired. And we were dealing with a lot of trying to get pregnant and all of that stuff, which was taking up a lot of my time, unfortunately. So it was it wasn't necessarily one moment. It was like a slow burn. It was following my gut that I was okay taking time. I really knew I needed to take time for me. And as job offers were coming in or people were inquiring to get me back into that fold, I found myself not returning phone calls. I found myself not responding to people who were quote unquote very important back in the day. And I would realize 2 weeks later, oh my God, that person called me. How did I not return their call? And just a gut check made it very clear. Well, because clearly you don't want to go back right now. And so that it really was slow. And I took my time opening the Den because I think I also knew the minute I decide to do this, it will happen very quickly. That's just how I operate. That's just how it works. And so that's why I say it wasn't like a moment. It was more of this checking in with myself and kind of honoring myself in the moments and then waiting for the right moment to do it.
Mm-hmm. So at this time when you decided when your contract wasn't picked up, you decided to make a career switch. TV comedy development is a youth-oriented culture.
Yes.
You were in your late 30s. Did that have anything to do with that?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, all my friends are still there, so who knows? I need to constantly be learning. That's just how I am. I get excited by that. I get excited by newness in that sense. And I, in that moment, was not learning as much as I wanted to be learning anymore. And I think I was getting a little more stilted. And once that happens for me, it's not good for anyone around me, to be honest. So I don't know if it was necessarily a youth thing. Anyone who knows me well, I have an insane amount of energy. Even with my age, I joke with the people who work for me at the Den who are all in their 20s. When I come in, I'm like, oh God, you need the old lady to do this? Because
the old lady in her early 40s,
but
by
still,
the way.
compared to them, it's like I'm double their age and I have an absurd amount of energy. So I don't think it was necessarily a youth thing. I think for me, it was my soul, it was like dying a little bit. I wasn't feeding it and I could feel it. I've always been kind of very in touch with myself and I've never been one to have to do something. I've never been one to be like, if I don't do this, then I'm not a good person, or I don't tie my identity to necessarily my job or what I'm doing. My job or what I'm doing needs to fill me. It kind of works in reverse for me. So it was easy for me to kind of get in touch with, this isn't feeling right anymore. I need to take a break. And also for me, it wasn't meaning like I'm closing the door on this chapter and I'm never going back, because that's what everyone assumes. And I'm like, who knows? I could wake up one day with this idea I have to try and execute, and then I'll be back. I mean, I don't know in what avenue or what capacity, but I just never say no to anything.
So you started meditating when you were still working at NBC.
Yeah.
What did that do for you?
At
What
NBC
does it do for you when you meditate? I mean, what was it that you found
I was going through a rough period when I started meditating. I was going through a divorce. I was in that job, which was a very high stress, high pressure job. So a lot was going on. And I think it really helped center me. I also think, like we were just talking about, I knew something was off for me as far as where I was in my life and not kind of going in the right direction. So I think meditation, what I always say does for me daily, it's all the things everyone hears. Yes, it helps you with your stress. It helps calm you down. It helps with clarity. I just think it really helps you get to know yourself better. And I always say the more you know yourself, I mean, this is what the Den is entirely based on. The more you get to know yourself and the more you know yourself, the easier life is because you just make decisions with clarity. You're just a happier person. I just find everything rolls out easier when you're just confident in who you are.
So before I met you, I had never heard of a meditation studio. I always thought of meditation as something you did at home alone.
Of course.
Share with us about what the Den Meditation Studio is exactly.
Well, it is. It's a drop-in studio, so you can come in for classes for 30 minutes or 45, all guided meditations. We do all different styles. So we always say something's going to resonate with you, and it's accessible. I mean, the whole point of it for me was how can someone go before work, during work, or after? How can we make it easy? How can someone have a guided meditation so A, they can learn or just sit down and do what it is they like to do, but at the same time, make it feel accessible and not like a lineage, not very specific to a religion, so that everyone can. I always say, like, you can come in wearing a suit from a corporate job. You can come in wearing like board shorts from the beach. Everyone should feel comfortable there and everybody belongs. And I don't want anyone to feel like, oh God, I have to be a vegan or I can't go there. You can absolutely be a vegan and come, but you also can eat meat and come. You can drink, you cannot drink. Our point is just be you. And the more you find you and the more authentic you are to yourself, the better you'll fit in, not only here, but everywhere. So we don't want to feel exclusionary or for people to feel like they have to follow certain guidelines in order to be part of something.
So how did you come up with the idea for a meditation studio? Was there something you had seen somewhere else that you were
No, it was
modeling
I
off
needed it and I wanted it. So when I was at my job and I was meditating, I was really trying and struggling to keep a practice for 2 times a day. I wanted to do morning and night in a perfect world. I was nailing 1 time a day because I had it scheduled in because I ran the department, so I could literally schedule it into the schedule. But twice was hard for me. I mean, there's so much going on. It's hard. And I kept just getting online and looking for a meditation studio, just looking for it. I'm like, where can I go and take a class before work? Because I knew if I showed up, I would do it. And I knew if I didn't show up, all of a sudden I'd be like, well, I have to read the script or I have to make this phone call. Or I would make a million excuses why I wouldn't do it. So I couldn't believe it didn't exist. And I kept looking. I mean, all the time I would just look. And I remember when I went to New York for work that spring, I was like, oh, we're in New York. Has to be here. And it didn't exist there either. And I spent the weekend, I spent like 3 hours at the Dharma Center on a Sunday, which I loved. But I remember thinking, this is where everything became very clear to me. Okay, most people don't have 3 hours. I usually don't have 3 hours. I just happen to be here for work, so I have nothing personal going on, and it's the weekend, so we're not actually doing work right now. But in my everyday life, 3 hours is a lot to be able to do this. And I loved it, but I was like, I couldn't bring a lot of my friends here. They'd be nervous. They would freak out. It was just a little bit like, I want to be respectful. What is everyone doing? And that's when it became very clear to me, okay, not only do we need a place to go that's easy, I need a place where anybody can walk in and not feel like they're all of a sudden subscribing to a religion or they're being hippy-dippy or they're being woo-woo. They can be all of those things, but nobody should feel like they have to be those things if they show up. So that's where it all crystallized for me. So that's how it came up, was I needed it and I wanted it and I just hoped other people felt the same way.
So you drafted a business plan?
So that I was still in my old job, so I didn't really do anything, but I kept thinking about it and thinking about it. I finally started working on a business plan, like an actual business plan, when I started looking for space and doing the business plan at the same time. Because that's how I am. Like, I am a vision person. Like, I see it, I do it, and then like all the details kind of come in backwards. I'm not necessarily the poster child for like how to start a business, but it works, like, because it's the way it was, like all gut and instinct and then sitting down. Because I think, like I said before, I knew the minute I sat down and started putting pen to paper, it would happen very quickly. So I was very reticent to do those things too early because I was honestly needed a break. I needed time in my life to not do too much. And it was true. The minute I started putting pen to paper, I think we were open within 5 months, which is a lot. I mean, that's finding a space, doing the thing, getting everything,
And
your
you're
branding.
doing this and you have an
and I have
infant.
a newborn.
Yeah.
She's 3 months older than the Den. from opening our doors. It was crazy. I basically had twins that first year.
Both of your parents are physicians.
Yes.
At some point, you told them. What was their reaction? You're like, Mom, Dad, this is what I'm going to do.
I mean, again, because this is a later in life decision and they know me so well, they're like, of course, like nothing surprises them with me. And I've earned a lot of trust with my parents because I've always been someone who follows my gut and probably has made decisions many times that people are like, huh? And they've always panned out. So my parents are always, well, if anyone's going to do it, you're going to do it. She asked a lot of questions. She didn't even understand it because it didn't exist. It's not like I said, I want to open up an ice cream shop. And they might say, well, why? And this, but at least they understood what an ice cream shop was. Here, they're like, what? Like, what is it? So they were confused and asked a lot of questions, but there was never a lack of support or any doubt, which was great. I'm very lucky.
So did you have to go out and raise investor money?
My husband and I did it ourselves. That was really, which made it more stressful, but also was very important to me because it was such a new idea. I really wanted the ability to create something. Creativity is really important to me. So for me, that was important. Like, I want to be able to create this as it is seen and as I know it, and then I will shape it as anyone in business needs to shape, like when you realize what's working, what's not working, and you have to constantly evolve. But I didn't want to compromise right off the bat. I didn't want to have to answer to somebody else right off the bat when it wasn't their vision and they might not have understood, especially with a new idea, because I think people's instincts are to compare it to something else and automatically give you the 15 reasons why not. You can't do it this way because if you look at these reports, they say this. Don't do it this way. And I think subconsciously it's another reason the thing I jumped into was something that didn't exist yet because it gave me a lot of freedom.
One of the things I thought was so cool when I visited Den Meditation was the decor. It's such a beautiful space.
Thank you.
No, seriously, you've got brick walls and these natural floors and plush chenilles that are turquoise and purple. And it wasn't stereotypical. There weren't a lot of like Buddhas and lotus flowers. And was that by design?
It's intentional for sure. Again, and that was very strongly part of the vision. Like, I always knew exactly what it was going to look like. And it is intentional. And that goes to what I was saying earlier of making sure everyone felt like they could walk through the door and it was universal and it was comfortable. And so that is why, like, if you come to my house, I have Buddha heads. Like, I love it. I have nothing against it at all. But I just wanted to make sure that right off the bat, and it's called the Den too for this reason. It's a living room. It's your home. It's your center. Everybody has that. Everybody should have a home and a center. It doesn't matter what your belief systems are. So that is by design to have, it should be a living room that people want, aspirational in that sense. So I'm glad you liked it. But it should also just feel like a living room and comfortable and shouldn't necessarily, like we do steer, even our logo, like we steered away from like the lotus flower types, or the mandala type of things, because even though I love them, I just, again, I wanted to start something new. I wanted it to be a little bit more accessible.
So the first location opened up in Los Angeles over on La Brea, and you just opened a second location in the San Fernando Valley in Studio City. Tal, you're taking on a lot.
It is a lot. I'm tired. I mean, yeah, you said this is being taped. You can tell. I'm tired. But it is, I mean, you do a lot too. When you're doing something you love and when you're seeing it affect people in a great way, it's energizing. So it does really help me, as tired as I get or as exhausted as I am. I find all the things in my life that pull also energize me simultaneously. So the business is a lot, but I love it. And, yesterday I was, hitting behind the desk, our front desk person, because I'm watching two people talk on the couch that would never have crossed paths before. I mean, I think there was probably almost a 20-year age difference between them alone, different races, probably from very different parts of the country, I'm guessing. Like, they could not have been more polar opposite, different sex, like everything. And like I said, a huge age difference. And here they are because they've seen each other in enough classes that they're like, and like know each other by name. And that is one of my favorite things about a place like that, which is, again, it strips away everything and brings everybody down to the common denominator we all have. It's just you are who you are. And I love that part. So that gives me energy. So I can be tired, but then I see people finding peace in themselves and I see people meeting other like-minded people no matter what the age difference is or where they're from. And I love that.
Yeah, no, I can so relate. I mean, the thing I love most about doing this podcast is bringing women together. I have women writing me emails that say, "Gosh, I listened to this person in this episode, and I'd love it if you'd introduce me. I'd love to pick
It's
her brain. I want
amazing.
to do something similar." And I do. And just to bring two women together like that is so gratifying.
It
And
is.
and it strikes me exactly what you said, and that is we are all so much more alike than different.
Yes.
Regardless of what, you're in or you want to launch or we've all been there. We've all tried to juggle the balls. We've all struggled from
And also,
with
those balls constantly
self-doubt.
change. Like what you do for a living can change a million times. How much money you have goes in, it goes out, it changes. All that, and that's what people don't realize. Like they get so bogged down on those definitions, and they forget. But that changes.
Mhm.
So like, figure out who your constant is because that doesn't change. And so the more you know that, the better off you are.
I have to say, looking at all you accomplished during that period of leaving NBC and adopting a
It was a
child
lot.
and launching the first den and launching the second den and being so invested yourself financially,
Yes.
you and your husband. Wow. Are you amazed that you were able to? You've kind of come up for air now. Both of them look like they're doing really well.
You know,
Are you amazed that you were able to shoulder all of that at
It's
once?
funny. I think while you're doing it, you don't even realize it's happening. Though I will say that first year was brutal, but I didn't realize it was brutal until it ended. Because I remember turning around one day and saying to my husband, that year was really hard. And I just started crying because, you just kind of go into survival mode a little bit. Like, I want to be there for my daughter. I have to be there for and I was doing everything in the beginning. It was like front desk, managing, program. I mean, it was, very few people there. So it was a lot. But like I said, you get an energy and you kind of plow through. And same thing now when I'm with my daughter, there's an energy no matter how tired I am. I'm so excited. She's so great and it's such a fun age. I didn't even realize I was doing all of it. I think that's the thing. You don't even realize it's happening while it's happening sometimes. A friend of mine once said, "Oh my God, like your year," or I'm trying to remember who said it. It was someone who actually didn't know me that well because they started hearing my story. And they said, "Oh my God, like 5 years ago, your life looked completely different. The amount of changes you made within such a short period of time." And that was the first time I realized I did it. Like I wasn't consciously doing, I wasn't like, I want to change this, I want to change that. Like I said, I just kept acting from instinct.
Mhm.
And that was the first time I went, oh my God. Like I didn't even realize I had changed that much until someone really pointed it out, to be honest, if that makes sense.
Do you miss the money?
I know I joke all the time. I'm like, oh God, I would love to make some money right now. I mean, look, I'm also very lucky because I have my husband. So it's like there is a support there. So I'm very lucky in that regard. But yes, I mean, I've been working I've been making money since, really young because I always used to babysit, but I've always had a job as long as I can remember. Like through college, I had a job. I mean, so it is weird, like and I have a job now, but it's not exactly like I'm getting a paycheck. So,
Mhm.
and I had a very nice paycheck. So yes, do I miss that? But I think that was part of my change and the beauty of I never defined myself by my job. It took me a while to adjust as far as like how I lived my lifestyle and things I did. But as far as being okay with me, that was fine. That never changed. I just kind of laugh. I'm like, this is where you are right now.
And your husband's a writer.
He's a writer.
And does he write for television?
Yes, he writes for Family Guy. So he's the funny one.
And he's the one with the steady paycheck and the security.
Yes,
Well, to
right
the
now
extent
that
you
was a
can be in
joke.
the TV
I
business.
used to be the steady one, but yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's key though that you had somebody backing you up.
No, absolutely. Financially and emotionally, it's great.
Mhm.
It's important both ways.
So when you look down the road, you got to feel pretty empowered at what you've been able to accomplish in a relatively short
Short
amount of
time, yeah.
time. And sort of what's your vision for Den Meditation and you? I mean, you've got one kid. Do you think you'll have another?
I know we
And
talk about it all the time. We laugh because we're both like, oh God, we're so old. And it's hard because I do, in a way, have two children. The den is one child and my daughter's another. And they have very different needs and they're different beasts completely. But, I did birth them both. Like, almost, well, I didn't actually birth her, which is hilarious. But they both came to this world at the same time.
right, your daughter's adopted.
She's adopted. Yeah, let's make sense of that statement. But it's again, the vision question is hard for me. Because I know I said earlier I'm a visionary person. Like I have visions and that's what happens. But they have to come to me when they're
Mhm.
ready. I've never been a 5-year planner and I've never been a 10-year planner, like ever in my life. Like not even out of college. People used to ask me that in interviews all the time. Like, what's your 10-year plan? And I remember I used to get like a head cock and like a eye looking at me going, huh? Because my answer even in college would be, I don't know. I just feel like I'm always going to work really hard and try and do things I enjoy. And I'll probably be 50 and I'll look back and everything I do will make sense. And I remember people being like, wait, do you want this job or not? Like, what are you speaking? But that's always been my philosophy. I'm a hard worker and I've always been a really hard worker, but I'm also very open. Like I'm open to anything that comes my way. And I've always said that. That's been my thing. I'm like, if you remain open, but work really hard, the right things come to you. Like your path becomes clearer. But the working hard is important because you can't just sit there and expect it to come.
Have you always been a self-confident person?
I think my mother would say yes. I mean, like anyone, you have moments of, we all have moments. But, I think as an adult, I can answer that clearly, yes. I don't think I realized what that was until I was an adult. And I do see people legitimately struggle with that, which is a hard thing to struggle with. So, yes, I can confidently say I'm a confident person because now that I'm older and I understand what that really means.
One of the things we key in on with SheSez are takeaways, things that our listeners can learn from your story. Wow, one of the really big ones that I see with you is listening to your gut.
Yeah.
Your gut came into play so big with leaving your job. You said your soul was dying. You listened to that. A lot of us like to ignore that. We feel our soul dying. We know what's going
But it's
down.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah, change is hard. And you listen to your gut when you came up with an idea for an innovative business.
Yeah, that still surprises me because I've had ideas before. It is interesting that that's the one I chose to act on, and I do thank the universe for that because it is interesting that was the one I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Like we should do it. It was very clear to me. That one was very clear, and wouldn't leave me. So maybe that's why I just kept like knocking at the door. Yeah, following gut is hard. I'm lucky. I'm someone who's always taken chances. Like I'm not afraid of it. And so I think anyone who can kind of work on that, not being fear-based, I think when fear starts controlling things is when you go in the wrong direction and realize that you're going to be okay. It might not be, and part of that is losing expectation. I think when you have a certain expectation, things are going to go a certain way is where fear comes into play because it doesn't go that way and then panic ensues. So I do think you have to be comfortable kind of taking steps forward, but not knowing exactly what that means and where it's going to go. And that's why I always say work hard. Like if you're someone who can work hard, then you can bet on yourself. Like I know I'm a hard worker and I've always said that. Like no matter what happens, I'll go find a job somewhere. Like, I'm fine. Like I'll go, I feel like I could find joy in anything. So I whatever that means, part of me is like, I'll go beg a florist to let me, deliver flowers. I'll go work in Starbucks. I meet so many people. Like, I mean, whatever it is, I know I would be scrappy and I would try and get in there and make sure that I was okay as far as what I would need to do to survive in this world. And I think knowing that has always given me a freedom of knowing like, I'll always take care of myself. Mm-hmm. So that gives me a freedom of taking chances. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. When you walk into the Den meditation today and you see everything you've accomplished, you basically saw something that you thought of come to fruition in such a beautiful way. What does that feel like for you?
I mean, I remember the moment I had that first feeling, which was insane. That was an amazing feeling, which was before we opened up La Brea, we did a book launch with Chandresh Bardwaj, who's an incredible teacher that works with us. I love him. And we did his book launch, and it was the week before we officially opened our doors. So we hadn't done a class in there yet. At this point, it was up. Like I'd been sitting in that lobby every day doing work, but it was like my little haven that I'd created with whoever else was there. And then all of a sudden we did this book launch and people showed up and people I didn't even know. That to me was the biggest surprise. I thought I was going to have to beg all my friends to just like populate the rooms for a while. But I think I had a couple of friends there, which was great. But I looked around and I remember I was in the room and he was talking and then he asked us to meditate. And before I meditated, I actually looked around when everybody else closed their eyes. And my heart skipped a beat because I was like, oh my God, there's all these people in here meditating and like smiling and asking questions and receiving and being interested. And the space was being used like in exactly how I envisioned it being used. And that was like, I mean, I literally pinched myself. I couldn't believe it. And then to see people talking afterwards and socializing and meeting each other and it really, I always say the space is only as good as the people who walk in the door. And so that was really the birth of the Den, is the moment those first energies came in and started giving it life.
Hey, Tal, not everyone's familiar with meditation, and most people don't have a meditation studio where they can go learn. Can you offer some tips for someone who wants to try meditation just at home, some of our
Sure.
listeners? Well, how would they go about doing it?
Oh, I'd say the first thing to do is just be easy on yourself. And again, what we just talked about, let go of any expectations, because I think that's where people stop doing it is everyone expects to all of a sudden become a monk and have nothing going through their heads and all this peace and quiet. And that's just not going to happen. Not today, not your first time. Most of us still are striving to have even moments of that. So it's remember that you are human, you are going to be thinking, and there are going to be thoughts in your head. So that's number one. Comfortable position. In a perfect world, meditation is done better with like an upright back. But look, if you need to lie down, lie down. Do what's going to be.
So you're saying sitting in a chair?
Sitting either in a chair with both feet on the floor, or, sometimes we have cushions, which might be a little, people probably don't have that at home, but if you have a cushion set, you can sit there, and a straight back is, in theory, the perfect way to do it. However, again, if you're going to meditate better lying down, or you need to do it in bed and prop yourself up with a bunch of pillows, be comfortable. That's the best way to do it. A really easy one to just start with and just do it for a few moments. It's just concentrating on your breath. It gives you something to do. We can even add numbers to that to give you something else to do. So you can close your eyes, take a deep breath, really relax your shoulders, and just kind of picture yourself loosening up. Sometimes it's helpful to picture like a golden light going through your body. For some people, it's just picture the sun shining on you, whatever you need to kind of help you relax. And then breathe in for 4, and you can even count it while you do it, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathe out for 4. And even if you just do that for 2 minutes, and again, if your brain wanders and all of a sudden you're hearing the dog bark or you're thinking about, oh God, I forgot the tomato sauce, whatever it is, just say, okay, I got it. Thought, thank you. And then just go back to counting and breathing. And so don't be like, oh no, there's thoughts. Oh my God, this thing's ruined. Just think, there's my thoughts. I had them. I will get back to them later, and then just go back to counting. And that's what's helpful about either, we call it an anchor, using either breath or numbers or sound. It's something that you can kind of concentrate and go back to, because it does, in a weird way, give you something to do, which I think is what people struggle with.
And really 2 minutes is enough? Is that the optimal?
Optimal, you'd want 40 minutes, 20 minutes. However, I think if people could do 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the afternoon, it's great, because at least you're doing it. But to start, my point is if you just do 2 and you see that you've survived and you're okay, do 3 tomorrow and then build up to 5. And then from there, if you can get 10 regularly, 20 is perfect. I mean, that's what we always try and say, 20 morning, 20 night, you'd be a whole new person. But I suggested 2, meaning I'm going off of someone who's never done this before.
And a lot of people use meditation apps like Calm.
Great.
Is that a good idea to try that?
Look, I'm for everybody doing whatever you need to do. And I think anything guided is helpful, because it's just, they can pay attention. And that's why we do guided classes. So I think an app is great, and it's on the go. If you need to sit in your car and you need someone to help you meditate, take out your app, not while you're driving, but pull over, and you can do a great meditation.
Well, Tal, you've inspired me to try meditation again
tonight. Oh, good. Well, come on in.
My husband's a big believer, but he does it in the morning before he goes to work.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think the nighttime's better for me, but I'm going to try it.
We'll make you a believer, too.
You'll make me a believer, too. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us. We so appreciate it. You can like us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram. We'll tell you which guests are coming up every Tuesday. A new episode of SheSez drops. And thanks again.